Dear students, as part of the paper on fertility, let's focus in this module on fertility and how it contributes in understanding the population changes in a geographical region over a period of time. The major learning objectives of this module refers to understanding the fertility, its concept, and how the variations exist between fecundity and fertility, and basic demographic equations as understanding of the population situation. Human fertility is a complex process which is responsible for the biological maintenance of society, and it constitutes to a great extent an essential component in demographic studies. In population dynamics, fertility is a positive force through which the population expands and counteracting the force of attrition which is caused by mortality. Fertility refers to the number of live births per woman in the given population. It represents the actual performance and should not be confused with the ability to reproduce, which is termed as fecundity. The inability to reproduce is called sterility. The scope of this section in this module refers to in providing the importance of study of fertility in population dynamics. Natality is the study of total process of fertility, and the way it affects population change is an important aspect for us to know. Any society replenishes itself through the process of human fertility. Thus, in population dynamics, fertility is a positive force through which the population expands, counteracting the force of attrition which causes by mortality. The process of replacement a group through fertility is a very complicated process. Within these biological limits of human fertility, several social, cultural, psychological, as well as economical and political factors are found to operate, and these are responsible for determining the levels and determinants of fertility. Measurement of fertility is not as direct as in the case of mortality. Only a section of the population, namely women in the reproductive age group, which is biologically identified as between menarche and menopause, and for purpose of demographic analysis usually refers to the period between 15 and 50 years, which is capable of childbearing, and even among them fecundity will be a varying factor. Apart from the biological aspects, there are additional behavioral components to fertility. Fertility can be controlled by conscious adoption of contraceptives or other means to prevent births, and therefore we have controlled fertility as distinct from natural fertility, the latter meaning fertility in the absence of any form of voluntary control. For these and several other reasons, it becomes difficult to identify the group of women exposed to childbearing. The dynamic character of fertility was realized when, after the Great Depression of early 1930s, the birth rates in Northwest Europe and North America, which were quite low till then and which had consistently registered a declining trend, started rising, stabilized themselves at higher levels, and then showing declining trend. Till that time, the demographers had expected a steadily declined trend and ultimately stabilized lower level in the birth rate. With the upsurge in the birth rates following economic development, a phenomenon popularly known as baby boom occurred, and all the population projections based on the assumption of declining birth rates went haywire. Though this baby boom was not anticipated and caused never to be forgotten embarrassment to demographers, it brought about a realization among social scientists in general and demographers in particular that fertility had to be studied in a broader perspective with due importance given to various social, economical, cultural as well as political factors. Evidences are many to show that fluctuations in the fertility rates of a country might take place in response to the factors in areas of political, social and economic conditions. For instance, in Romania, as a result of legalized abortions, their birth rate declined from the level of 24.2 per thousand population in the year 1956 to as low as 14.3 per thousand population in 1966, exactly within 10-year period. When in 1966 the abortion facilities were withdrawn, their birth rate shot up to again 27.4, that too in one single year, that is in 1971, perhaps this most rapid rise in birth rate ever witnessed in a single year. According to Ronald Friedman, I quote, "This experience in Romanian demography is a dramatic example of the kinds of natural experiments occurring in human fertility, most of which are not studied systematically in order to observe causes and consequences." Unquote. In 1960s, it was increasingly realized that the greatest concern for any country, both developed and developing, was the birth rate. The growth rates of several countries at present widely depend on the levels of fertility and mortality, and they are not much affected by international migrations. In the developing countries, mortality has declined considerably and it is expected to further decline in future also. But birth rates in these countries, however, have not declined correspondingly, with the result that these countries were experiencing rapid population growth and posing a great threat to social and economic development of these countries. Later, in the 1980s and 90s, the fertility level has started declining in most of the developing countries, but still the birth rates are relatively higher in some developing and underdeveloped countries. Hence, the efforts at bringing down fertility rate would be successful only if the knowledge of fertility behavior in the context of the cultural, social, economical and political settings are clearly understood on a scientific lines. As a result of these developments, there has been a great spurt in fertility studies, especially in developing countries after 1960s. The other reason for growing interest in the study of fertility are also worth considering. One of these is the age structure of any population, which is primarily determined by fertility, and that the bulges and gaps in this age structure can have very serious repercussions with regard to the social, economical and political overtones. Even though childbearing is basically a biological phenomenon, it is generally argued that variations in the levels of fertility are not primarily due to the differences in physiological capacity, but are more often produced by responses of individuals and couples to the social systems in which they live. The biological and behavioral factors which directly influences fertility are called proximate determinants of fertility as postulated by Bongards. The various social, economical and other factors that influences childbearing through these proximate determinants are of important interest for studies. The distinguishing feature of proximate determinants is their direct effect on fertility. An important distinction has to be made regarding fecundity and fertility. Fecundity refers to the capacity of a man or woman or a couple to participate in reproduction, that is the production of a live child. Fertility is the actual performance, that is the number of live births that occurs per woman. Let's focus on basic demographic equation. The most basic equation that expresses the change in population over a time in a simple form is known as the basic demographic equation, or usually called as the balancing equation. It is the decomposition of the population change into various components, referred to as P2 is equal to P1 plus B minus D plus I minus E, where P2 refers to population at the latest year, P1 refers to the population at the earlier point of time, B refers to births, D refers to deaths, I refers to immigrants, and capital E refers to immigrants. That's why P2 becomes P1 plus N1 plus Nm, where Ni is a natural increase and Nm is the net migration. When we refers to population change is measured as the difference in population size between 2 points of time. It can be expressed in terms of absolute change, percentages, average annual absolute change, geometric or exponential growth rates also. It can be refers to changes in size, distribution or composition, or to any combination of the three as referred above. Let P2, that is population at later date, P1 population at an earlier date, and Y number of years between P2 and P1, that is absolute change, is equal to P2 minus P1, percentage change, that is P2 minus P1 by P1 multiplied by 100, linear growth rate usually denoted as small r is equal to P2 by P1 minus 1 whole divided by Y. The geometric growth rate or refers to P2 by P1 minus 1 divided by Y minus 1. Exponential growth rate is equal to In of P2 by P1 divided by Y, where In is the natural logarithm. Let's focus on various components of population change. There are only three components of population change, that is namely births, deaths and migration. Population grows through the addition of births and in-migrants. Population declines through the subtraction of deaths and out-migrants. These three demographic processes are essential to understand the nature and causes of population change. And the area of fertility refers to the occurrence of live birth and is determined by a variety of biological, social, economic, psychological and cultural factors. Biological factors determine the physiological capacity of women to reproduce children. Other factors determine perceptions regarding the costs and benefits of children. Contraceptive availability and effectiveness play an important role in affecting the ability to control the number and timing of births. Fertility rates have declined over the last 2 centuries in most of the developed countries located in Europe, North America and Australia. Some of the developing countries have also experienced a drastic decline in their fertility rates in the recent past. A detailed discussion on mortality and migration also have been discussed in other modules. As far as fertility is concerned, the measurements are usually through indicators like the age-specific fertility rates, which are also presented as ASFRs, the total fertility rates denoted as TFRs, crude birth rates like CBRs for India, for various states and various districts are presented by various surveys and census data that is usually available in a country like India. And when we refer to the various levels of these fertility indicators, one would come to know how there exists a huge variations not only in different reproductive ages but also over a period of time and also according to different geographical settings. For instance, if we look at the National Family Health Survey conducted at 3 rounds, number 1 which was conducted in 1992-93, the second one was conducted in 1998 and 99, the third NFHS 3 which was conducted in 2005 and 2006. Let us illustrate how the various age groups, how their women in these age groups have their fertility levels. For instance, in the age group of 15 to 19 years of women, in NFHS 1, the fertility performance was 0.116, which has come down to 0.107 in NFHS 2 and further came down to 0.090. In the age group 20 to 24, while NFHS 1 showed the fertility level as 0.231, in NFHS 2 it has come down to 0.210 and in NFHS 3 it was 0.209. Let's see in the age group of 25 to 29, where in NFHS 1 it was 0.170, in NFHS 2 it was 0.143, has come down to 0.139 in NFHS 3 round. In the reproductive age of 30 to 34 years, in NFHS 1 it was 0.097 and in NFHS 2 0.069 and in the latest round of in NFHS 3 it was 0.062. In the reproductive age of 35 to 39 years, NFHS 1 showed the fertility level as 0.044, which has come down to NFHS 2 of 0.028 and further came down to 0.025. In the reproductive age of 40 to 44 years, NFHS 1 showed 0.015 and in NFHS 2 0.008 and in NFHS 3 it was only 0.007. And in the last age group of higher age of women of reproductive age in 45 to 49 years, the NFHS 1 showed the fertility level as 0.005 and in NFHS 2 it has come down to 0.003 and in NFHS 3 it is 0.003. When we look at the total fertility rate, it was very high in NFHS 1, that is 1992-93 survey showed that TFR was 3.39 and in the case of NFHS 2, that was in 1998-99, the TFR has come down to 2.85 and in the latest third round of NFHS 3, which was conducted in 2005-2006, the TFR has further come down to 2.66. The crude birth rate, the CBR, which was as high as 28.7 in NFHS 1, has come down to 24.8 in NFHS 2 and further has come down to 23.1 in NFHS 3. What this statistical table clearly reveals is that the fertility levels are coming down, no doubt about it. At the same time, the various fertility indicators are clearly reflecting that a country like India is experiencing a significant reductions in fertility levels over a period of time. However, one should know that at macro level for a country like India, though there is a desired effect of reduction in the fertility which is coming over. Furthermore, one also should know that there is a huge variations in fertility levels across different states and within states across different districts. So, it is very important to critically see the changes in the fertility rates in various geographical regions, and so that it will give a clear picture about the levels and trends in the fertility over a period of time, and also the type of interventions that have influenced these changes, and also to understand the way in which the fertility behavior is going to occur over a period of time in future also is of interesting to understand. As a part of conclusion, we need to understand in this module that fertility is one of the important components along with migration and mortality in influencing the population change. Though the fertility was not recognized to a great extent in the beginning that it is an important contributor of fertility, population change, but an important aspect is that there is a growing importance and influence of fertility which has come up over a period of time. And if we look at between various countries, there is a significant differences in the fertility levels between developed and developing countries, where the fertility levels are very low in most of the developed countries, and fertility levels are relatively higher in the case of developing countries. At the same time, we also should know that the other factors like mortality and migration also have an important contribution in understanding the population change. While we talk about the fertility levels in developing countries, which is important for us to understand, because mortality levels are more or less have come down and they are drastically started showing its reductions over a period of time, even in the developing countries. However, the fertility is an important positive factor for influencing the population growth, and thereby an important aspect of contributions and understanding how the fertility can be brought down, and also the type of interventions that are required in bringing down the fertility to a desired level. In this context, we need to understand that it is very important for us to know the type of interventions that are required in influencing the fertility, and also to see the effectiveness of these interventions in a particular geographical region, and to assess the significant changes that are coming in its contribution for the overall population change is an important aspect of our understanding. And in this module, one could understand that the fertility, mortality and migration, though they are of important contributions, components for population change, one would reasonably see that fertility is a dominant component in understanding. That is why efforts of various policy makers, program managers and at grassroots level workers are constantly and consistently needs to focus in this area, so as to see that the positive factor of population change, that is fertility, has to come down to a desired level for its overall influence on population component of growth, and at the same time for the overall development of a society.